What's going on, guys? We are back with the rating climb. Let's see if we can go to 1350. So we have d4. Let's play d5. Keep it simple. We have a Queen's Gambit. I'll go ahead and play the Queen's Gambit accepted this time. And let's just develop our knight. Looks like white's going to be recapturing the pawn here on c4. And I'll go ahead and play e6. So notice when I play e6, I'm immediately shutting down this bishop on the diagonal. One drawback of this move is that I'm blocking my bishop in. And that's something that I kind of was planning ahead for. And I had this idea in my mind that I was going to play a6 and b5 and put my bishop over here. So you can sometimes do this. You just have to understand what you're doing and have kind of a plan for that bishop if you are going to block it in, like what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and play bishop e7 because I want to castle. But like I mentioned, the plan for this guy is going to be a6 and b5. And if for some reason our opponent plays a4, then I'll probably just go b6 and put the bishop over there. So this is a setup that I have played before against the Queen's Gambit accepted. And I kind of like to put the bishop along this diagonal. Kind of controls a lot of those center squares. So that's kind of the idea. I'm still recovering from my sickness, but feeling a little bit better. I'm sort of getting my voice back. Definitely not there yet, but I think I'm going in the right direction finally. And I'm not really sure what happened to our opponent. Looks like they're either thinking very hard here. Okay, bishop to d2. Interesting move to think so long on. Well, I'm not going to worry about that. Doesn't, really bother me here. I'm going to go ahead and castle like I was planning on doing. And now I will play a6. And like I mentioned, I'd like to play b5 and put my bishop over here. It also stops, white's pieces from going there. They could have played a4, in which case I would have played b6, but since they didn't, I'll go ahead and play b5. This is a pretty solid setup you can play against the Queen's Gambit. You accept it, and then you just kind of put your pieces like I'm doing here, and the bishop's going to go to b7. And usually we'll play c5 to kind of gain some space here. Lets the queen out, attacks the center, and the knight can really go to c6 or to d7, depending on what's happening in the game and what we need. Now, a lot of times when a4 happens after the pawn's already on b5, the best thing to do is just push by. And if you think about it, if I leave it sit there, white's just going to capture, I'm going to lose a pawn. If I take, white's going to capture somehow, and then this is actually a target for me. See, the bishop and the queen and the rook are all going to be lined up there. I'm going to have two isolated pawns. And so usually just pushing by makes the most sense in this type of setup. And you can see we kind of gained some space, and it doesn't let, white's rook into the game, and we continue with the game. So I'm thinking if I want to play a5. So the issue with a move like a5 is that it opens up the b5 square. I have to watch out for stuff like this, which in this position, probably not going to be that significant either way. But the other thing is this is already defended. So probably I can just kind of hold off on that. And I think what I'm going to do instead is probably develop my knight. So I'm thinking about playing this move. I'm like seeing emojis show up on the chat window. I've never seen that before. I guess that's is that a new thing that YouTube's doing now? Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I think I was going to play knight here. C5 is a move that I like to play a lot of the time. So I could play knight here first and then c5, don't have to play c5. We can do other things as well. I'm just kind of scanning. Like, also knight to e4 sometimes makes sense. Just jumping into the center since we've got it supported. But I think before I do that, I would like to have this knight probably ready to potentially go support it from behind. Queen to b3. Okay, so now we do have to think about this because white is threatening to simply win a pawn here. And it seems like probably a5. Now, I could also play c5 and then takes. We would have this, so white couldn't do that. So c5 is also an option. And by the way, like taking here, even though it messes up the pawn structure, that's not a move I want to play. I don't want to open up a rook on my king and to give up a really nice bishop. And so definitely going to ignore that. c5 or a5. The question is which one makes the most sense. I'm trying to think what's white going to do if I play c5. They're not going to take it, I don't think, because the knight jumps in. That's a very powerful move, and I'm going to just win. So what would they do instead? They'd probably just castle and leave it alone. And then what? Then my queen's able to come out and do something, or I could still play a5 at that point. So yeah, I think I'll go ahead and start with c5. I might follow it up with a5, depending on what what white's gonna do. But I like that it opens up the diagonal for my queen to come out, and I might even actually, oh, they do take it. So that's just a big blunder. Just loses a piece. I'm going to take and take here. And white's, yeah, basically the game is over. So, you know, at the 1300 level, we still see these big mistakes, right? It's not like that different from 1200. Our opponent was playing pretty well, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened here. They fell apart. Looks like, hope we just take the queen. We could take either one, but I don't really want to lose a rook. So, okay, they just resigned. Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I think what we're going to see... Oh, we basically played a perfect game almost there. Basically, what you're going to see from like 13 to 1800 is that everybody makes mistakes, but the 1800 makes less than the 1300. And as you go up, you see less and less and less mistakes. And that's kind of what chess is, right? When you first start playing, like every move you play is a blunder. And then you learn to like, okay, don't get checkmated in one move. Don't lose my queen. Don't, you know, hang free pieces all over the place. And then it's kind of this gradual climb of making less and less and less and less mistakes. And you don't have to necessarily come up with these super crazy complicated plans. Like, I didn't do anything fancy in this game, right? I just didn't make any mistakes. And there was a very basic tactic, which we saw at the end, which cost white the game. It was literally that simple, right? Like, you just can't take this pawn. You have to think through what's going to happen if black takes it back with the knight, right? So, yeah. Anyway, let's play another game. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to share all my emails with you. I thought I had the game tab there. All right. Let's go e4. And yeah, all my top secret emails. Let's play knight f3. I might play a Ponziani here just because it's kind of fun. Should we? Yeah, let's play the Ponziani. I used to play this exclusively. It used to be my main system for a while. Bishop c5. I don't know why people play this because I don't think it's a very good move. Because if you think about it, you've got 3 pieces, and I have 3 pieces, which means I can play d4 here, and I do it with tempo. And so I'm not really sure. I just don't think it's a good move because I get this nice pawn center for free with the tempo on the bishop. So, yeah, here we go. Let's just develop our pieces. This is where I wanted to put my knight anyway. So if I can stop the check and develop, it makes sense. And we have this very nice pawn center here. Sakib, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Queen to f6. Very interesting move. Because normally that's where your knight's going to go. Queen's kind of an awkward piece on f6. It's easy to attack, which is why it's kind of a strange move. Bishop g5, knight to d5, e5, all of these moves I'm going to be thinking about. Now, knight to d5, of course, I can't play immediately, but I can set that up in the future. I could play bishop g5 immediately, or e5 immediately, or I could save those moves and just bring out this bishop and get ready to castle. So let's think about this. I mean, I also could bring like my queen out and put pressure on the bishop over here. So lots of moves here. Well, what I like to do in these positions is start with the obvious one. Just start with the obvious one and see what happens. So if I go there, where's the queen going to move to? There's not a ton of places, really, because you can't go backwards on the diagonal. Looks like g6. You go here, it's a fork. I'm pretty happy about. I guess I have to watch out for this check. Gets a little bit tricky, but still seems like an awkward square. d6, also pretty awkward. So I'm really expecting queen to g6. Then I can maybe play bishop d3, the idea of playing e5 and just almost trapping the queen. After h6, e5, the queen could jump over here. That looks pretty good, honestly. Maybe I could even try to set that up by playing bishop d3 first. We might lose a pawn here. Yeah, so I mean, I think from a preliminary analysis, it looks like a good enough move to go ahead and play. Whether or not I'm going to go with bishop d3, yeah, I'm still thinking about. But I like being able to develop the piece with the tempo. So that looks pretty good. So the only thing I'm concerned about here is after, let's say, h6, bishop moves, maybe the queen moves here. Do I just castle? Looks pretty good. Still, position with a lot of options, so I'm going to just kind of consider what happens if we chase the knight away. Where's it going to go? There is a threat here I'm noticing because of the pin, so I do want to probably defend that. So yeah, d5 looks like check. So I think bishop d3 makes the most sense. Yes, queen c2, bit queen e. These are other moves you could play, but I don't want to spend all my time since we're still kind of in the opening phase. So I think it's going to be bishop to d3. I just noticed one move, though, that I do want to think through. Knight takes here. If I play bishop d3, the knight captures. I can't really take back or I lose a bishop. So is that a problem for me? I didn't see that before. Does actually look like a nice little tactic for black. Unless I have some follow-up. So with that in mind, maybe I will find a different move. Because if I move the bishop, then the knight just trades, and I think black just wins a pawn for like no reason. Okay. We could play d5 and allow the queen to come in with the idea of playing bishop e2, castling, and then just launching an attack. That actually looks pretty good. So if we do this, where would the knight? I mean, if the knight just moved back, then I'm pretty happy. We've gained some space and we've chased the knight away. This is really the only move. Then bishop to e2. Knight moves somewhere, and then we castle. Next move, we're bringing the rook over. It looks like a lot of pieces. Black is still undeveloped and not castle. Yeah, I do like that. So I know this was a long think. It's actually a pretty tricky position, but I think this looks pretty good. Basically just giving up the pawn with the idea of I'm going to be able to play bishop e2 castle next move, and black's got to figure out how to, you know, not get checkmated. So that's kind of the idea. Okay, so they're going to trade first. That's fine. And now they can take here. Kind of what I was expecting. And so, yeah, I don't think we need to change the plan here. We play bishop e2. And we're going to castle next move. And this pawn is hanging, but I don't think I really care. I'm just going to, like, attack the king. It's basically what's happening here. So I know some people might be afraid to play chess this way because you're like, oh, I'm losing all my pawns. But you have to think of it in terms of what are you getting in return? Well, look at this. 1, 2, 3 pieces. My king is totally safe. And look at black. They're not developing. They're not castling because they're grabbing pawns. Okay, they didn't want to grab this one, I guess. But, you know, it's not like I'm just losing pawns and I'm just losing. No, I'm getting different stuff in return, basically. I'm even thinking of leaving that there and just playing rook e1. If they take it, though, do I have a good follow-up? Do I have a good follow-up? I don't know if it's quite good enough, and I'm not seeing it like right away, so I'll just go ahead and save the bishop. If it was a longer time control game, definitely would probably consider that move longer, but in this case, I think we're just going to go back. All right, so now I think we can play rook e1, start activating the rooks. Here we go. This is a very dangerous position for black's queen, so I'm expecting a queen move somewhere. Not sure where is a good spot. But it's not just the queen. This is awkward for black, you know, to try to figure out how to get developed. Even if they move this somehow and eventually castle, it's still not going to be totally safe for black's king. So there's a lot of like long-term, you know, compensation in the position for losing a couple of pawns early on. Okay, and here we see the first big mistake that I was kind of talking about. Our opponent forgot about this. They just forgot about it. You guys want to pause? Well, not pause. If you want to see if you can find the best move. Sorry, I'm sick. It's bishop b5 check, and it's going to win the queen. So there we see, you know, the big mistake. And I'm actually going to trade first before I take the queen, so I don't lose the bishop at the end. So, I mean, it's kind of the same story, right? Like, our opponents are playing okay, and then there's a big mistake, right? So, we'll check the game review real quick. 80. Okay, so we did make a few mistakes in that one, so let's go ahead and see what some of those were. Kind of had a feeling like there maybe something went a little wrong there. Yeah, so the engine doesn't like bishop c5 like we talked about. You just lose a tempo. Doesn't really make sense to do that. Bishop g5. So what was the best move here? It looks like we had something better that we missed. e5. So it was harassing the queen, but in a different way. Followed by bishop d3. Bring the rook over. Bring it up. And what was the idea? Oh, again. Did I see this before? No, it couldn't have been the same line, but it was the same idea, and I totally forgot about it. Yeah, I did a video like this previously in the series where it was you allow this, you attack the queen, and then later you bring the bishop back, and the queen sort of gets trapped. That's kind of what we're seeing here. Rook to g2. What happened? Where does the queen go? Okay, what do you want to do here, Stockfish? Oh, now it wants to play d5. All right, so Stockfish is a little confused, but basically the point was go ahead, attack the queen. Doesn't matter if you're going to lose a pawn down here. You're going to get so many tempos with all your pieces. This is what it comes down to, that it's just good for you. That's what Stockfish wanted, essentially. So, all right. in the game. This is what we did. Yeah, so some of these moves are very difficult to tell why Stockfish is choosing one over the other. D6 actually does kind of make sense because we were going to lose that pawn anyway, potentially. And this way, this guy's stuck. Totally stuck. This bishop's not coming out now. So, yeah, that was a nice move that I could have found that I didn't see. So I'll keep that one in the back of my mind for next time. But, okay, let's play another game. I think we analyzed this one enough. All right. Here we go. Let's see. What do we want to play? Should we play the Cozio again? So, you know, a funny story here. The main line, A6, I don't know if I've ever played it in a tournament game. I don't think I ever have. I used to play the Berlin, and so I really don't know like a lot of theory. So I kind of don't want to play that. I think I'll just play something that I'm more familiar with as we get to the stronger players, 13, 14, 1500. I'll try to play things that I actually, you know a little bit about what's going on. So this one I've talked about before, but what we're doing is relocating the knight over here to G6. And point number one is that we defend our pawn this way, so that if white ever trades the bishop for the knight, we've got this covered. The other point is sometimes you actually can use this knight to attack the king. So like knight to f4 is an idea, knight to h4, sometimes if this moves away or whatever. These are the kind of things you want to keep in mind. And so we'll see if we see that in this game. But that's definitely a possibility. So let's play bishop c5. And probably going to try to castle next. And then we'll kind of see what white's going to do. D4. So we have 3 pieces and white only has 2. So I don't, I guess white is gambiting the pawn or blundering the pawn, one of the two. And it's a question of which way do we want to take it. I think I'm going to take with the knight because we've got this guy defended. Doesn't allow white to trade. This bishop might actually become kind of weird sitting over here without any knight to take. And of course, if white captures me back, I'll just take with the bishop, and I'm pretty happy with how my bishop looks in that position. So let's go ahead and take with the knight. And I'm not really wanting to take this way because my king is still in the center, so I don't think it really makes sense to open up the center when I don't have to, when I have other good moves. So I think what we're going to do is castle. That's what I would like to do, just get my king to safety. I mean, yeah, we have knight h4, but going on the offensive and attacking stuff before you've castled doesn't really make sense. So just verifying that nothing's going on here. I don't really see any threats. Let's go ahead and castle. Okay, so a couple of ways we could play this. Number one, just finish our development. So just a simple move like d6 and get ready to potentially bring the bishop out maybe here. The other way would be something like c6. Now, why would I want to play c6? Well, it takes away a bunch of squares from my opponent's pieces, right? Like, look at all these pieces that are all of a sudden, you know, can't go anywhere because of that pawn. It also lets my queen out along this diagonal if I wanted to move it over there, which I don't know that I do, but both of these moves seem to make sense. I wouldn't be able to play d5 right away. White has too many pieces lined up there, unfortunately. But even just controlling those squares, I do like the idea of. But I don't like that my bishop is still not getting out. Another move that I'm thinking about is moving my king over here. And the reason I would want to do that is because it gets out of the pin. And then I could play f5 to try to attack on the king side and potentially open up this rook on the queen. Now, if the bishop takes, I would be very happy because white stepped into a pin. I would simply probably just attack it with my queen. And I think I would win a piece. I'm not worried about that. So really 1, 2, 3 options. And since I'm not sure, I'm going to play d6. A lot of times when you're unsure, just play the most natural looking one, which is d6 in this case. If you don't see like a clear winner, which I didn't, all 3 of those moves seemed good to me. A lot of times I'll just default to like, what's the most natural looking move? Like if I was going to explain it to a beginner, what would I say? I would say play d6 and get your bishop out. So that's what I played here because I wasn't sure. And this move doesn't really prevent any of the other moves from happening next turn. I could still play c6 if I want. I could still play king h8. So yeah, I think that's a good choice. Right now, I'm kind of just thinking of random ideas, which may or may not be useful. Bishop e6 I like because it controls this diagonal. And if white were to trade, it would open up my rook, which looks pretty nice. Also, you know, gets the last piece off of the back rank. Don't really have anywhere else to go. I can't go here. I can't go here. I could go to d7, but, you know, looking at these two, I think e6 just looks more aggressive. That's definitely a move. Knight to h4 is here, but why? What's the follow-up after the queen, let's just say, moves? I don't really see a good follow-up, so I don't think I want to go there right now. Knight to f4, can't get away with at the moment, or I'd be losing a pawn. Okay, so I don't really want to give up that bishop for this knight. I think the most logical thing is to just retreat. You know, usually bishops are slightly better than knights. And so with that in mind, I'm going to go back here. Notice everything is defended, so I'm not concerned about that. I think maybe a6 next move to chase that away. Maybe even c6 as well. The issue with c6 that I do want to point out is because we won that d-pawn, white has a half-open file here. If I were to play c6, I would have to be careful of this d-pawn potentially becoming a target. Right now, it's very well defended by my pawn. So, you know, in this case, if I'm debating between these two moves, I might choose a6. Okay, so I think bishop e6, like we talked about, completes my development to a nice square, fights for control of this diagonal, and really there's not a lot of other moves that look as appealing as that. So let's go ahead and play it. I'm expecting white's probably going to develop their bishop maybe to e3 or something. This is defended. And I'm probably just going to leave the tension right now. I don't really want to bring white's knight from a bad square on the edge of the board to a good square in the center. c3, okay. Maybe they want to come here at some point in the future. Other than that, b4, not really concerned. Don't see a whole lot happening there. All right, so let's think. How do we continue the game? A lot of times after the development's complete, you want to get the queen off the back so that the rooks are connected. So queen e7, queen d7. Could play a crazy move like queen h4 just to get the queen over on the king side. Just don't really see a great follow-up, and so I think I would probably rather just go somewhere like d7 maybe. Creates a battery, gives me, you know, the possibility of going there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So I don't want to overthink it in a position like this. You know, there's not a lot of tactics or tension. So I think just a simple move like this makes sense. Okay, so we could take it. The one reason why I might want to do that is because it clears this out of the way, so we could very easily play f5, e4, f4, f3, just roll these pawns down the board and attack the king. I could also play c6, followed by d5. Earlier I said d5 wasn't an option. But white has since moved the knight away. I think now we could get away with this. You have enough pieces defending it. This also looks pretty good. Yeah, I really do like the look of this, though. I'm going to go ahead and take it, and because just having these connected pawns with rooks behind them looks really, really powerful. I mean, look at this. I'm going to bring this rook over here. Boom, boom. We've got the bishop slicing across. We've got the knight in position. And this looks very, very dangerous. And I don't know how white's going to stop it, right, without that pawn there. So, very happy to do that. C4. Not really sure what's going on there. I'm not worried about that. So I'm going to just probably E4. Question is, do I want to set up with the rook first or just immediately push it? I don't think we have to rush, so let me go ahead and take a moment to just get everybody ready. And next move, I think now is the time. E4, F4. And what I'm going to try to do is open up my rooks to attack the king. Kind of the plan. We have pretty much all of our pieces positioned in a way that they can attack the king over here. And white has some pieces that are, it's questionable what they're going to be doing next, right? So B3. All right, so we open up the diagonal. I have bishop here. Doesn't really do anything. I'm probably not going to go there. Let's continue with the plan. No reason to change it up now. I'd like to be able to go there, but it's not defended. Bishop B2, but it's already defended, so I'm not super concerned. I think probably just continue with our plan here. I could also play knight to F4, which threatens this immediately. And maybe we can jump the queen over. That looks really good too. So the question of which way do we want to do this? This one? Or this one? Oh, I can't go there, the bishop. All right, that's pretty obvious. All right, let's play F4. So, I mean, that's a good example. Like, even I'll make mistakes sometimes like that, right? But usually I catch them before I play them. And it is more rare, right? Like, I'm not making mistakes like that all the time. It's kind of what I was talking about. Like, right, a 1300, going to make those pretty often. A 1400, a little bit less. 1500, a little bit less. Interesting move here. Our opponent is trying to plan ahead for our attack somehow, it looks like. But I don't know if that's going to be quite enough. I think F3 looks like a very strong move here. And what I'm doing is getting rid of the pawns in front of the king, also at the same time unleashing the rook, creating weaknesses here. So let's go ahead and play F3. And if G3 happens, which a lot of times when somebody's attacking, the best way to stop that is to push by and not trade. Well, then they're going to open up Queen H3, which is very bad news for white. Also, if this ever happens, I have a very easy solution. I can bring my rook up, right? And I don't have to keep my queen sitting here defending this. So that's just something I'm keeping in the back of my mind. So I'm ready if white ever plays bishop b2 to try to checkmate me. All right, so here we go. This is what I was talking about. Queen is coming in, and I don't see how white's going to do it. Yeah, you can go there, but I have bishop takes f2. Might even have another move like this. Yeah, this might even be better, actually, guys, because if, let's just say white plays bishop to b2, and the game's over. Sacrifice the queen, checkmate. So I'm thinking rook f5. Now there's g4. G4 actually is a good move, so maybe it's not the best move. Ah, maybe we play this. Maybe this one's better. Of course, this is good too. But I'm going to play rook e5. I think that might be a little better. I'm going for checkmate, guys. There's an immediate mate in 2. But I think white has to play g4. I think that's the only move. And then what do we do? We could hop the knight in. On g4, I'll probably just take the pawn at that point. Yeah, because that looks really good too. But see, this move is actually nice because it blocks the checkmate as well. So like, let's just say g4 happens. I can take here, and on bishop to b2, which before would have been threatening checkmate. Okay, so that does not deal with the threat. And that was a tricky checkmate threat. That's not like a normal mating pattern. That's a kind of a more advanced one. So I don't blame our opponent for missing that. But there we go. We got a beautiful queen sacrifice here. And rook h5 is coming next move. All right. So, like the game review briefly. I believe we played that game pretty well. Let's see, 90. Okay, not too bad. It looks like you missed a few things though. Let's just take a look. Yeah, so d4 was a pretty big mistake by our opponent. Just giving up a center pawn is usually not good unless you're getting something in return. But in this case, they weren't getting a lead in development. They weren't getting an attack on our king. You know, they weren't really getting anything for that. So that's why it's not the same as like in the previous game, right? So we took that, castled, knight to b5. We went back, bishop to e6. Okay, so that was one. Let's see, what did the computer want here? Yeah, it did want king to h8 right away, just to get out of that pin, and I guess maybe just play f5 right away is what it was hoping for. All right. It did want queen h4. Interesting. We did talk about it a little bit. Interesting here, the computer wanted us to play f4 first. Huh. So the reason, I'll go ahead and tell you, the reason I didn't play f4 and I didn't want to play f4 is I didn't want to allow white to get like a blockade along the light squares to where my pawns are stuck. And I guess the engine says I don't really care. I'm going to just keep, you know, bringing my pieces over and keep attacking. But that's why I decided in the game to go this way, because this square was already controlled by the knight. So white couldn't play queen f4. Right? And so I knew that I was going to be guaranteed to be able to play both pawns forward, which, I don't know, engine doesn't like it, but from a practical standpoint, I think that makes the most sense. Yeah, now we're just totally crushing, and there you go. Cool. All right. 1335. We'll play the Ponziani again. Okay, that's a good move. We're going to play d4, and this is something that I've studied before, so I know that it's okay to give up this pawn. If I didn't see this before, you know, it would be tough to play a move like this, but because I know what the follow-up is, very easy for me. If black would have taken here, we simply push by. Once the knight moves, we grab this pawn. So it's kind of a trade, just a pawn trade, essentially. On this one, I believe what we're supposed to do is push this pawn. And we don't want to lose the pawn, so we push it forward first, then we recapture, and the game goes on. That's about all the theory that I know, really, when it comes to the Ponziani. So we can block with the bishop or the knight. Knight to c3 is not an option for us because there's two attackers, and we would walk into the fork there. I think I will play... So normally I would play bishop d2 because I don't want to block my bishop in. But in this case, I could consider the knight and then play a3 and b4. And then, yeah, no, I don't think I like that as much. I'm going to play bishop d2. I didn't want my knight to get pinned and to run into issues there. So this way, now I can always play knight to c3 later if I want, or even right now if I want. And I don't get jammed up with my pieces there. Okay. One thing I am paying attention to is that my opponent has castled. I have not. But I have to watch out for things like rook e8, d6. And all of a sudden, my king gets under attack, right? So how do we deal with that? Well, we could play bishop e2 and castle now. Could play bishop c4, gain a tempo on the knight. Probably gonna go back to b6. And maybe we just go back here or something like that. Yeah, let's go ahead. I guess we'll play that. Bishop c4, getting ready to castle. All right, so he's throwing in the trade. But in this case, both of these captures actually make a lot of sense. This one makes sense because it develops a piece right away. And it's not a bad square for the knight. Defends here. It can potentially go to e4. This one also makes sense because c3 really is probably a slightly more aggressive square for my knight. And it controls these squares, which are also kind of important. And this might be a place where I would move my queen to anyway. And so it's kind of like both of these could be playable. So I'm trying to find a reason to play one over the other. And I think I do. I think I do want to take with the queen. And one reason that I'm finding is it controls these dark squares. Like, for example, knight to f4 is not going to be an option for black. I don't know that they were going to go there anyway, but if I take this way, it's an option. If I take with the queen, it's not an option, right? You can just see how the queen is controlling some of those dark squares, which I do like. And like I mentioned already, knight to c3 is a great square for my knight. I'm just debating if I want to play knight c3 first or if I want to go ahead and castle. Let's play knight c3 first. I am going to have time to castle, and this way it gives me the option. If I want, I can castle queenside. Okay, so now what I'm thinking of is d5 and just getting that space and chasing the knight away. Where's the knight going to go? Probably to a5. That's not a great square for a knight. Then I can just drop back. Yeah, because if black plays d5, it's a much better position for black. I think it's kind of a big mistake, h6, because of that. I am going to play d5 here. All right, so let's just verify that there's not any threats that we have to deal with. I might just go ahead and play a3 because I can, and the knight has nowhere to go except over here, which is not a great square for the knight, right? And I don't really want to leave it there constantly threatening this fork. So I think it makes sense to just throw that move in. There we go. And now I'm probably just going to castle here. You know, I could also castle this way. There's some weaknesses, though, that I have to be careful of. And unless I'm going to throw these pawns forward and attack on the king side, I don't think it makes sense to castle that way. Now, I could do that, but I think I'm going to focus on this instead because these pawns are just so amazing here. That's really where I want to play at. And it's a question of, do I want to, play d6 right now? Really the question. Am I worried about d6 is the other thing. It's just such an annoying problem for black to have if you can't bring out your bishop this way. That's why I really would like to play the move d6. I'm going to do it. It's just such a natural thing for black to push this pawn up and get your bishop out. And to not be able to do that causes so many problems. I'm going to value it higher than even castling in this moment. Now, could I be wrong? I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. You can see what I'm talking about, right? Like this is stopping this is stopping that. And so black's going to have to do something like this, but all the pieces are kind of awkward over here. And now I think it's finally time. I do have to pay attention to this. It's coming probably next move. Let's go ahead and castle. But we got what we wanted. We got this annoying pawn stopping black from completing the development. Now it's a question of how do we take advantage of that? So rook e1, rook d1, knight e4. I'd like to play knight d5, but I can't. I'll lose a pawn at the moment. Let's go ahead and start with rook to e1. Take control of that file before black does. And now I might be able to play knight d5, because if queen takes, I think we have a tactic, knight to e7 check, which would win the queen. So knight to d5 is an option for me. And that's a very, very dangerous move for black to deal with. Very dangerous move. So I'm checking one more time. The move is knight to e7 check. It's a discovered attack here on the queen. And if the queen tries to take me, I have my rook. So that's why it works. If black doesn't take it, where else would they go? I don't know. Maybe over here. But then I'm going to be jumping in here most likely. And my rook's coming in, or maybe even my pawn. Also looks very good. Let's go ahead and play it. I'm keeping an eye on the time, but I'm also really focused on playing good moves, because this is a really great position. The game could be over in a move or two right now, like if I play a few more accurate moves. So with that in mind, 2 minutes and 44 seconds is still a good amount of time. I'm going to start thinking. I know that black can't take it. I'm going to start thinking if they play queen g6. Yeah. I don't really have a good follow-up is the problem here. So in this position, I'm just not sure. I like my position so much that I think what I'm going to do is just bring the rook over. You know, I don't want to like sit here and run out of time. And so this is a good solid move. And now I can keep thinking what we want to do next. We can get rid of this knight. Maybe I had before. Maybe I missed that before. Yeah, I had before. Had before, and I missed it. Oh, we have 95. Ooh. That's a cool tactic. Let's just... Should I do that? But then the queen can take maybe? Oh, it's getting wild. No, it still works for me. Okay. It's getting wild. Getting wild. But I'm pretty sure this is a good move. Wow. Now, what's black going to do is the question. I don't know. They're probably going to move their queen somewhere. One of these squares, maybe? Ah, they fell for it. Okay, they fell for it. I saw this one. I take here. They can't take back with the pawns, or they have this. I have this one. And if they take with the queen, I have this one anyway. So that was an advanced tactic. Here we go. Unleashes the queen. And there we go. All right. Now, the game is not over. Still have to finish it out. But we have the queen for the knight. So I'm going to go ahead and trade as much as I can. Simplify things out here. Go ahead and grab a pawn. And let's just go back. Just defend the rook. And now I'm kind of shifting. I was, trying to really play good, accurate moves. Now I'm just going to kind of shift my focus to like trade stuff off. Don't make any huge blunders. I'm going to move a pawn over here real quick so I don't have back rank mate problems, right? Just keep it simple, play quickly, and try to trade off some of these pieces. I'm going to go ahead and do it. A queen against a rook with an extra pawn. Very easy to win still. And getting rid of that knight makes everything so much simpler, right? So here we go. We push this guy, and there's no way for black to stop this, right? So that was a... Sometimes practically, playing the not best move still helps you win the game easier, right? So that's what I'm doing. I just push it. So keep that in mind. I don't even have to think. I just keep pushing it like this, and it's gonna be... I guess I should have just pushed the pawn, but it doesn't really matter, right? No stalemates, because black has a bunch of pawns that they can move. I'm not worried about stalemates. All right, good game. Let's check that one very quickly. I felt like we missed a few things. Yeah, 86. We did miss a few things. So let's see what we missed. It did get pretty wild there, so I'm not surprised that I missed something. Okay, so the opening, I think, was fine. And, all right, let's see. Was it maybe d5 right away? Yeah. So that idea that I was talking about of getting this pawn pushed was so powerful that Stockfish wanted me to do it right away, even before developing. Because if black is smart, they're going to play d5 now. And all of a sudden, it's just kind of like an equal position. And I basically missed my opportunity against a stronger player to play this. And also I have that queen kind of shutting down where the knight can go. Black's going to have to go back, and then bam, d6. And same idea like I talked about. This guy's stuck, which means this guy's stuck. Everybody's stuck, right? See how powerful that is. So yeah, definitely did miss that one. I saw it a move later. Okay, and there we go. All right, so we did do it. Just you know, and this is the kind of thing, right? Like against this 1300 rated player, I had a second opportunity to find that idea. But as you get higher and higher and play stronger and stronger players, you're not going to get second opportunities. You're only going to get one chance at those things, right? And that's where like you would need to be paying attention, and you would need to see this idea the first time, right? So keep that in mind. All right, let's keep going. So here you go. And right around here, I think a lot of players could potentially mess this up. So, and it looks like I kind of did too. But notice that I didn't play like a bad move. And it's easy to get into a good position like this and you don't see it and you kind of panic and just play something crazy. That's what you don't want to do, right? You don't want to play something crazy. So what I did was play a move that's like, hey, this is... It can't be a terrible move, right? Because it's bringing a rook towards the center to help out with stuff. But you do have to be careful. Now let's actually see what was the tactic here. Takes. The rook was going to come over. And what did it want me to do after this? Knight to e5. All right, so the queen moves what? Somewhere. Oh. How did I not see that? Yep, there it was. It was pretty basic, actually. You force the trade. The pawn forces the rook over. You follow it up with knight to e5. I think I just stopped calculating before I got to 95, and I missed it. That is pretty obvious now that I'm seeing it. Yeah. So it was there, and I had a feeling in the game, right? Like I should play 97, but I just didn't see the follow up. Okay, so there it was. And again, 97 was a good move. We sort of made it work with the roundabout way, though. All right, and there we had the victory. Okay. All right, guys, let's do one last game here, and I'm gonna save the rest of my voice at that point. All right, one more game. And this ideally should put us over 1350, which is exactly what we were trying to do. 7 points, perfect. Okay, should we play... Somebody say King's Indian? Well, let's try the King's Indian. It's been a while since I have brushed up on the lines, so this will be interesting. King's Indian is one of those openings that it's really nice when you have the theory freshly in your mind of like, all right, I should play this against this line and this against that line. I do not have that. I just, yeah, I forgot a lot of it. So we're just going to kind of go with it. Hmm. When you're starting out with King's Indian, you always fianchetto. As soon as the e4 pawn jumps forward, that's when you play d6 because you need the option to capture. And knight e2, it's one of those lines. It's not played a ton. So I have a course on this, and I have like all these different setups that I play against different lines, and I teach it in the course. But right at this moment in time, I don't remember what setup I normally play against this. So sorry, we're gonna castle and just kind of see what we can come up with. There are some kind of standard plans in the King's Indian where you bring your knight out, you play e5, and then you attack on the king side. So maybe we'll just do that because, yeah, I don't really see much else to do here. Knight to g4 is a move. Maybe I could have played that. And basically, you're trying to grab that bishop. Because if you can get rid of that bishop, it makes your bishop over here very difficult for white to deal with. Yeah, so we'll just go with the standard plan here. We'll play e5, and usually white pushes, which is a good move, gains a bunch of space. And what we're going to try to do is move this knight out of the way and play f5 and attack on the king side. That's kind of the plan. A lot of times white expands over here, and we kind of push our pawns over here, and you get this really interesting battle. So now I'm wondering, should I play knight to g4 with the dual purpose of not only attacking the bishop but also getting ready to play f5? Sometimes you can't do this and you have to go with a real passive move like knight e7 or knight d7. But in this case, I think I can get away with this. I don't know what white's going to do, move the bishop here or here, or leave it. Either way, I think I would be happy. So let's play it. Oh my. Oh my. Well, you know, this is what happens. And yeah, I don't really have much to say. Sorry, folks. You didn't really get to see too much there. Yeah. All right. Well, we got to 1350, so we did what we set out to do, right? Yeah, didn't like e5, but King's Indian is one of those openings that Engine kind of doesn't really understand it. Let's just say hypothetically that they would have moved this. I was going to play f5, and it looked like white wanted to castle, but now they can't because of this. So let's say they moved it to here, because maybe that's a better move. I was actually going to probably force it to trade because it can't go back or I trap it. So I think they, at this point, would probably have to give it up. And then let's say they castled now. I was going to play f5 and try to attack over here. Now, yeah, this is an interesting, would have been an interesting game. I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe bishop d3. And sometimes they castle and then you can attack over here. In this case, their king's over here. So maybe I actually would change my strategy and start like doing stuff over here. I don't know what was going to happen. It's going to be an interesting game, but unfortunately, we won't get to see it. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. 1350, and we're still kind of seeing the same stuff, right? We keep seeing some mistakes here and there, but take it easy, guys. Stay sharp, play smart, take care.